guys, today I'm going to be giving you guys a Romantasy beginner's guide because I know how hard it is to get into fantasy because of how scary it is and how confusing it might be. And so I'm going to give you some really easy books to get into to start your Romantasy journey. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert at Romantasy or fantasy, but my past 3 years getting back into reading, Romantasy is pretty much all I've read. So we're gonna start off with YA because I feel like YA is a very easy genre to get into, especially within the Romantasy realm. And then we'll go into new adult or more spicier Romantasy books. I'm really bad at explaining how some of the books are about, so if I read some of the synopsises of the book, I'm sorry because if I were to just word vomit, you just get lost. I'm gonna do 5 YA series and 5 spicier series, just so I'm not putting too much information out. But I do have more. If you guys want more, just let me know. We're gonna start off with Caraval by Stephanie Garber. If you've seen one of my reels, I talked about how I didn't like this series, and it's not that I didn't like it, I just didn't love it. A ton of other people love this series, they are die hard for this series. I just wasn't, but I'm putting it in here because I know a lot of people really like it, and just because I don't like it doesn't mean you're not gonna love it. This book follows Donatella and Scarlett. Their mom grew up telling them about Caraval, and so it's been Scarlett's dream to go and watch. And their father arranges a marriage for her, and so now she thinks, oh, I'm never gonna see Caraval. Well, she gets an invitation and she drags Donatella with her. And once they get to the island, Donatella is kidnapped. And so instead of watching the show, she now has to enter the game so that she can be the first one to find Donatella. Whoever finds Donatella first wins. And so now she's entered into this elaborate game show, and she has to go through all these trials to get to Donatella. Scarlett has been told that everything that happens during Caraval is only an elaborate performance, but she nevertheless becomes enmeshed in a game of love, heartbreak, and magic with the other players in the game. And whether Caraval is real or not, she must find Tella before the 5 nights of the game are over. A dangerous domino effect of consequences is set off, and her sister disappears forever. Welcome to Caraval. Beware of getting swept too far away. I loved the concept of this book. Didn't love how it was executed. Doesn't mean you might not love it. So I do recommend this book. There's Caraval, Legendary, and Finale. The next series that I'm going to talk about is also by Stephanie Garber, and it's Once Upon a Broken Heart. Now, I love this series. This series, I have a whole tattoo for it, this little bow. This book is so good. So this is not a spin-off to Caraval. There are characters from Caraval that are in this book, so I would recommend reading Caraval before you get into the series, but you don't have to. Even the author said you don't have to read Caraval first to read this. It's just nice knowing the little characters that you get to see along the way. So this book follows Evangeline Fox and Jax. Evangeline is currently dating the love of her life, or who she thinks is the love of her life, and her stepsister ends up getting engaged to this man. Evangeline prays to a fate. Fates are immortal, they're tricksters, and they're not meant to be trusted, but she still prays to a fate, and the Prince of Hearts comes and he gives her this deal. If I help you stop this wedding, in return, you have to give me 3 kisses at any time, anywhere. And so she agrees because all she wants is this wedding to be over. And so he gives her this curse. She doesn't know what this curse does. She sets it off and it turns her stepsister and the love of her life to stone. Because she feels so bad, she reverses the curse and the curse sets on her. So now she's set in stone. And as time passes, someone releases her of this curse, and she still has to go through with this deal that she made with the Prince of Hearts, aka Jax. And so he has so much in store for her. There's a lot of drama, a lot of stuff that happens, and it's so good. There's romance, there's yearning, it's so good. So there's Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Ballad of Never After, and A Curse for True Love. I really liked The Ballad of Never After. It was so good. This is one of my favorite series of all time. I think a lot of people think The Ballad of Never After is one of their favorite books in the series, so I recommend this series wholeheartedly. And then I like giving book recommendations that people also might not see very often. I'm sure you've seen Once Upon a Broken Heart and Caraval out there, but Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. I ate this series out. There's only 2 out right now. I don't know when the 3rd one's gonna come out. I need it ASAP. Only a Monster by Vanessa Len was so good. I read it last summer while I was on vacation, and oh, it was so good. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but this follows Joan. Her and her entire family are monsters, and she meets this boy named Nick. He's her coworker. He goes to her school, and he asks her on a date. So they go on this date. Everything is great. She really likes him. Finds out that he's a monster slayer. She has to battle him, and because he's so strong and his family's so strong, Joan has to team up with Aaron. Aaron is part of this big, scary, top-tier monster family who hates her family. There's a lot of drama with that. I'll read you a little bit. As she battles Nick, Joan is forced to work with the beautiful and ruthless Aaron Oliver, heir to a monster family that hates her own. She'll have to embrace her monstrousness if she is to save herself and her family. Because in this story, she is not the hero. There's drama, there's plot twists, there's betrayal, and there's romance, and really good friendship, and it's so good. I recommend this series so much, even though the 3rd one's not out yet. The first 2 are so good. Like, there's things that you're like, oh my god, I didn't even expect that to happen. And then I'm also gonna recommend the Defy the Night trilogy. This, I feel like I don't really see people talk about this, but this is a Robin Hood retelling, but Robin Hood in this book is a girl, and there's Tessa and there's Wes, and they are part of this kingdom where their people are poor, and so they don't have enough money to receive medicine or goods, or they're just in poverty. And so Tessa and Wes steal from the rich, steal from the palace, these moonflower petals, because there's a plague that's going around, and their people can't afford medicine. They can't afford the moonflower petals to help heal the plague that's going around. And so Wes and Tessa are stealing it, giving it to the people, and one day there's this rumor going around that the moonflower petals are no longer working, and so she breaks into the palace to see if like the rumors are true, to see if she can find what they're using in the palace to cure or help with this plague. And lots of things happen once she gets into the castle. Her daytime job is an apothecary, and so she eventually stuff happens, and then she ends up getting called to be the apothecary of the palace because someone there is really sick, and they need someone who can find a new cure, new way of helping them with their plague. And there's betrayal, there's romance, there's friendship. It was so good, and there's only 3 books, and it's really easy to follow, and yeah, so good. The next one I will do is also a book that, I mean, I do see people talk about, but like not too often, and that is Belladonna. This is technically a paranormal romance, but in my eyes, I see it as fantasy. This follows Signa, and she kind of lives between the border between life and death, and she's tried to herself before, and it's never really worked. She's met death, she's met the Grim Reaper, but he never takes her. And so she takes these belladonna berries, and it's her only way of getting in this in between and where she can see death. So one day she's taking these belladonna berries, and she accidentally touches her auntie, and her auntie ends up dying. And then the Grim Reaper comes, death comes, and he takes her aunt. He doesn't take her. Death never takes her. And all these relatives try to be her guardian or caretaker because she will inherit a sum of money, and they think that if they take care of her, she's gonna give them some money. Because her auntie died, she had to go to her uncle's house. There was a murder, and so Signa is now trying to find out who did what, and like, why did this happen? Why did they do that? Why did they murder this person? And there's some plot twists, there's romance, you know. There's 3 books out. I don't know if there will be a 4th one. I think it's just a trilogy. Take that with a grain of salt because I have no idea. I'll read you a little bit. However, Signa's best chance of uncovering the murder is an alliance with Death himself, a fascinating, dangerous shadow who has never been far from her side. Though he's made her life a living hell, Death shows Signa that their growing connection may be more powerful and more irresistible than she ever dared imagine. If you love a murder mystery, you'll love this. We're gonna get into new adult or like more spicier books. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have many like non-popular book recommendations. I do have a few, but most of the romantasy I've been reading recently has been YA, and we all know what this series is, okay? We all know I'm gonna put it right here because I don't have the new copy. I only have the old version of it. ACOTAR, okay? Everyone knows ACOTAR. You either love it or you hate it. I loved A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's what got me back into reading, and I love the series with all of my heart. If you don't know, it follows Feyre, and she is really poor in the human world. She has 2 sisters and her dad, and they all take her for granted. And one day, she goes hunting because she needs to feed her family. She kills a wolf and brings the body back. Guess what? Tamlin, the High King of the Spring Court, crosses over to the human realm, and he finds Feyre and her family, and he says, for retribution, you have to come back with me because you just killed my friend. So he takes her across the land. She absolutely hates it. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Some people say you just have to get past the first book. I ate the first book up. I don't know. Maybe it was because it was my first book back into reading, but I ate it up. But I will say the other books in the series are way better. Once you get to A Court of Wings and Ruin, it gets a little bit more political and more fantasy and more war typey, you know? And so it might be a little bit harder to get into or a little bit harder to follow along, but I feel like once you get a little bit more practice into the fantasy or romantasy realm, you'll have a better time. People say ACOTAR is just smut, like a fantasy smut romance. No, it's not. There's way more to that. There's only like 1 or 2 or 3 chapters of smut. Like, it's not crazy at all like people are saying it is. The next book is gonna be Fourth Wing, only the first book. Everyone has talked about Fourth Wing. If you haven't read it, you're kind of just out of the loop. But Fourth Wing, just the first book. Once you get into Iron Flame and Oakstorm, it can get a little hard to follow, especially if you're not a fantasy reader, because those books are more political, more fantasy-esque realm than the first one. The first one is more romantic or romantasy, more based off the romance, and I do think it's really easy to follow the first book. The second book, you'll have harder of a time getting through that book, but once you get more practice and have read more fantasy books, you'll enjoy it, in my opinion. Unless a fantasy world is just not meant for you, then, you know, to each their own. If you don't know what Fourth Wing is about, if you're living under a rock, it follows Violet Sorrengail, and grew up wanting to be a scribe, but her mom is the general of... She is the... I'm gonna show you guys a video of my dog sleeping. They just like went outside and had so much fun, but just sleeping in their crate, but he's so cute. Yeah, so she's the general, the general of their, you know, army or whatever, and so her mom's like, you're joining the Riders Quadrant. Like, you're not joining a scribe? You're not joining the scribe quadrant. You're joining the Riders Quadrant, and you're gonna be a dragon rider. And guess what? That's exactly what she did. Okay, that's not a spoiler, because if she wasn't a dragon rider, then there wouldn't be a series. Okay, so yeah, and she meets Satan. I'm sure you know who that is. There's Dane, Liam. I cried in Fourth Wing. So if a book can make me cry, I would say it's pretty good. The next book is The Bridge Kingdom. I read the first 3. The third book wasn't my favorite, only because I didn't really care for the next couple, so I didn't read the 4th one either. But The Bridge Kingdom follows, obviously, a princess, and she and her bajillion other sisters were trained in isolation to be assassins, to be killers. And so one day her father is like, one of you is going to be arranged to marry one of these kings or princes as a peace offering, but in reality you're going to marry him, kill the king, and you're going to take his empire, take his kingdom. And so Laura is chosen, or she kind of chooses herself, and she infiltrates the castle. She realizes a lot when she's at the castle and creating these bonds with these people, and she is trying to figure out who really is the villain. Is it her kingdom, her land where she came from, or is it this king's, or this prince, this royal family? So she has a lot to battle within herself to figure out what she has to do, if she should follow through with her father's orders, or should she follow her own agenda. Plot is really good, and I think it's really easy to follow. Yeah, the third book is like during the same timeline as what's happening in, I don't remember if it's the first or second book, but it's like happening during the same time, and I just didn't really care for the second couple. The next series is The Serpents and the Wings of Night. I'm sure you've heard about it. It's a vampire Hunger Games-esque trial like book. I love Carissa Broadbent. I read her The War of Hearts series, and it was so good. I loved it. It's really thick though, that's why I didn't put it in here, because I think it was really hard to follow if you're just starting in the fantasy realm. But The Serpent and the Wings of Night I think is a really easy book to get into. A little confusing at first, but I feel like it's an easier book to read. It follows a human who was adopted by a vampire king. Takes her in, and she has paved a way in this world where it's designed to kill her. Vampires want her blood. Vampires want to kill her. She's protected though. And so she thinks that the only way to be respected and to be truly powerful in this vampire world is to join the Kinjari. I don't remember how often the Kinjari happens, but it's a set of trials. It's kind of like Hunger Games. There's a bunch of people that enter, and if you win, you get one wish from a god. And she thinks that if she wins, and she can wish something for herself to make her capable of surviving in this world, that she'll make her father proud, she'll make herself proud. And so in order to win, she teams up with someone who she really probably shouldn't. He's a threat to her father's throne, and his name's Rain. And team up, and he protects her because she can't protect herself in this arena. Okay, and the final book or series, I don't know if this is going to be a series, I can't remember if this was a standalone, but Games Gods Play. Again, another Hunger Game-esque type book. I don't know how often this trial goes, but it's called The Crucible, and a deadly contest that the gods hold to determine a new ruler to sit on the throne of Olympus. But instead of the gods fighting their own battles, they choose mortals as a champion. And so for some reason, Hades chooses, her name's Lyra, and she's just living, you know, to go to school, to get her career. My light just died. She is just here to, you know, like, go to school, get a career. And she meets Hades along the way, and she thinks he's a dick, he's an asshole, and there's a bunch of banter that goes around, and he ends up choosing her to be his champion for some reason, and it was really good. Of course, you don't, like, every book has Hades perceived a certain way, and he turns out to be the complete opposite, but I really liked it. And I'm going to show you what Olympus, or the underworld, is, I guess, looks like in this realm. Stunning. Thank you for watching. I hope I was somewhat of a help. I'm sure I was a little confusing, and I probably should have yapped a little less, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I get you reading one of these books. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.